Well, separately, as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Biden administration is making high-speed internet available across the country, or at least that's the goal. And they're using American-made fiber optic cable in North Carolina to get it done. They recently, or today, I should say, announced a couple of agreements with some fiber optic cable makers to expand capacity in North Carolina. We had a chance to speak with Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo on the push for affordable high-speed internet in the U.S. She is in North Carolina. It was an interesting conversation.
It is high time that every American has access to the internet. You can't go to school, run a business without it. Millions of Americans don't have access to the internet, particularly in rural areas. And President Biden has said enough is enough. And so we at the Commerce Department are investing $50 billion in partnership with states to make sure that every single American has affordable, high quality, high speed internet.
Yeah, and something a lot of people take for granted, right? People who do have that access. So the announcement that you're making in North Carolina in particular is a capacity expansion on the part of a couple of fiber optic cable companies, cable makers. Can you talk to us about that announcement, how it came about, and how it's going to fit into this plan?
Yes. So, you heard the president at the State of the Union say, it's time to get back into the business of making things in America. We believe deeply in manufacturing, whether it's semiconductor chips or fiber optic cable. And the reality is, if we're going to connect every American, including the tens of millions of Americans who now don't have the internet, we're going to have to lay fiber all across this country. And that's an opportunity to make that fiber optic cable right here in America. So tomorrow morning, I will be with two companies, CommScope and Corning, both great American companies, both making announcements of expanding their facilities here in North Carolina, adding hundreds of high-paying manufacturing jobs, making the fiber optic cable necessary to connect people who live in rural America. So it's incredible, right? Not only are we making sure every American has access to the internet, but we're creating high quality manufacturing jobs in the process as we make enough fiber to connect everybody.
Now, this is something you and I have talked about a lot before. We've talked about the administration's efforts to bring manufacturing to the U.S., whether it's semiconductors or fiber optic cable, and that's filling those jobs, right? Filling those high quality jobs. Are the people there? Are these jobs that are going to require substantial training? What plans are in place on that front?
So as part of our implementation of the broadband, we are including workforce training. So we are working with every single state. In fact, earlier, I was with the governor of North Carolina, and we want them to show us before we give them the money, how are you going to train enough people? And there are a lot of people to be trained, I should say. We think we're going to create over 100,000 jobs just, laying the fiber and connecting the homes on top of the manufacturing jobs. And so you say, do the people exist? Absolutely. There are many Americans who want to work. They need to be trained to work. And by the way, most of these jobs don't require a 4-year college degree, but they do require some training. If you have to learn how to connect a home, be a technician, be a wire splicer. There's different kinds of jobs. We are going to work in every community with high schools, with community colleges, with labor unions, finding and training folks. And that's, for me, that's what's so exciting. Like at the end of this, when all is said and done, every American will have the internet. So they can go to the doctor from home, do schoolwork from home, start a business from home, and we're going to train and hire over 100,000 Americans, which is, something that's really exciting, and it's why we call it investing in America.
I want to ask more broadly about the broadband access here, because, of course, making and laying the cable is only part of it, right? You have to have the service providers on board. And it's not just rural Americans that have problems with access, right? You saw a lot of kids in urban and suburban areas during the pandemic in particular who were there were stories about kids sitting in cars trying to get Wi-Fi signals in various places. So how holistically are you looking at the broadband issue, and how are you going to address all of that?
Completely holistically. And I should say there's no one size fits all solution. The way to connect everybody in Hickory, North Carolina is a different solution than in Providence, Rhode Island, where I'm from, which is, an urban area. By the way, you mentioned in your car, this library allows people to access the internet in the parking lot 24 hours a day. The library is not open 24 hours a day, but people come here 24 hours a day. They sit in their car in the parking lot to do exactly what you just said. So that's why we're working with each state. We're asking each state to give us their own state plan for how they are going to connect everybody in their state. We're also working with, this is a public-private partnership. The government isn't providing the internet. The government is working with private sector, cable companies, internet service providers, local co-ops, et cetera. And it'll be different in every state. And so we want to work with every ISP to make sure that they are providing the internet, and again, that it's affordable. It isn't enough that they provide it. I was just talking to some folks here. They pay $150, $200 a month. That is not affordable. We want high quality service at a price that the average consumer can afford.
That was Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo talking about the broadband expansion efforts. And as she mentioned, she was at a library in North Carolina where a lot of people go to get that access.